I'd like to talk for a minute with you about the billion-dollar gift that was offered. Well, was it in fact a gift? Did Colonel Gaddafi offer it as a gift or as a loan?
No, after the Million Man March, the day after, we received a call from Muammar Gaddafi. He was so excited at what he saw, he offered to place the wealth of the nation of Libya behind the nation of Islam and our goals and objectives of the empowerment of our people and Muslims in America. And later that was referred to as $1 billion, which in his September 1st speech last year, he mentioned that he would give $100 million to $1 billion to see the empowerment of blacks and Muslims in America. And so we sought a license from the U.S. Treasury to receive this $1 billion that we may use it for the uplift of our people, the empowerment of our people, and the empowerment of Muslims in America.
Let us set aside for a moment the fact that the U.S. government won't let you accept the money. Why do you think he's being so good to you? I mean, you're an experienced politician, an experienced leader. You've been around the track a couple of times. Nobody gives away $100 million to $1 billion just to be a nice guy.
Well, you know, we're in the season of atonement and reconciliation. And according to what we have read in the history, that some Arabs were involved in the slave trade, some Jews were involved in the slave trade, Gentile European nations were involved in the slave trade, and Africans were involved in the slave trade. And our worst destruction came after we were brought to America and totally destroyed as a people. So in this atonement process, the same people that helped to take us down ought to be a party to the redemption of this people in an act of expiation for past misconduct.
With all due respect, I've never known Muammar Gaddafi to engage in an act of expiation of any kind toward anybody. And let me just remind you of what Mao once said, my enemy's enemy is my friend. Has it not occurred to you that because Libya regards the United States with as much hostility as the United States regards Libya, that he might look upon you as a means to undo the United States, and therefore he might be willing to give you an extraordinary sum of money?
If the United States can be undone by truth, the United States should never have been in existence in the first place. Mr. Gaddafi could not enlist me to do evil against this country, but what he could do is back me in redeeming and strengthening and uplifting a people that have fallen in the mud and are not lifted out of that condition after 100 years up from slavery. The government of America, instead of criticizing Gaddafi, should say, we will join him, and if he gives $1 billion, we'll give $1 billion. After all, Mr. Koppel, we get $438 billion out of the American economy, less than 0.1% of which rotates in our own community one time. With $1 billion from Gaddafi and whatever our own government would give, perhaps we could inspire the growth of entrepreneurs in America that would attract at least 10% of that $430 billion back into our own communities, that we could rebuild the wasted cities.
I don't doubt for one moment that you could put that $1 billion to good use. But I ask you again about Muammar Gaddafi's motives in doing this. Perhaps I'm not as charitable in analyzing his motives as you are, but he is a man who clearly has some enmity toward the United States.
No, he does not have enmity toward the people of the United States. He has enmity toward the policies of the United States government. And let us be very clear, Mr. Koppel, the American people do not really know what the foreign policy objectives of the United States government is, how our government operates in Africa and the Middle East and in countries. We have 400 major corporations that contribute to the Congress. According to what I read last week, they have contributed up to now over $400 million to Congress, and by the end of the year, these 400 companies will contribute at least $1 billion to Congress to make laws that favor them. And most of these corporations operate in countries throughout the world and are interested in who those leaders are. And if a leader arises that does not lead for the greed and wealth of American corporations or British corporations, then American intelligence, British intelligence will move on that leader. And that's why the CIA has been guilty of assassinations all over the country and then has the nerve to call somebody else a terrorist.